Hey, it's Chris here. So I am going to be filling in the D&D Spells Survey, and so I just thought maybe I would do a video for it. Now I haven't looked at this yet, so this will be my first time viewing, but I definitely have some input on D&D spells, especially if they're going to be revising them for the next edition or the revision of 5th edition. So let's take a look at what they've got to say. Okay, so yes, I want to do that. And the original that I played would have been first edition. Okay. Okay. So, how satisfied are you with these spells as presented in the player's handbook? Oh, yeah, so we're just going to go alphabetical, I guess. I hope I get a chance to do some comments beyond just satisfied, not satisfied. Um, but I'm just going to go pretty quick. Now, Aid is a good spell. Don't get me wrong. I think it is worded very poorly. It should be more clear on how the current hit point increase works and what happens if you cast it more than once. So, in terms of design, I think they could have done better. But that's good. Alter Self, I mean, it's just not good enough, right? So, yeah. Animal Friendship is fine. Animal Messenger is fine. Animal Shapes is fine. Animate Dead. I think I'm okay with Animate Dead. Animate Objects. Yeah. Again, a little bit of a problem with the way they've designed it so that, you're always best to take the 10 tiny objects. Um, and I kind of wish it wasn't that way because 10 tiny objects, of course, is the hardest to run at your table. So, yeah, there's stuff that could be improved there. Again, I wish there were comments here. This doesn't actually give me a chance to explain my issues with some of these spells. Anti-magic field. That's a hard one to say. I think I'm okay with it. Antipathy, sympathy, arcane eye. I mean, arcane eye can be just a kind of a challenge remover. I'm not always big on those. Um, arcane gate probably shouldn't have required concentration. Arcane lock is fine. Armor of Agathis is pretty fun, actually. I like Armor of. I'm going to go ahead and say very satisfied. Arms of Adar, no, not good enough. Astral Projection, yeah, probably not good enough. Augury is fine. Aura of Life, I mean, it's on the weak side, but it has its uses, so I'm fine with it. All right, on to clone. Okay, so we've at least skipped some. I hope I'm not doing every single spell. Clone, yeah, I'm okay with clone. Cloud of Daggers is fine. Cloud Kill, nope. But this is a problem with poison in this game. It Cloud Kill could be fine. It's just that they've made it so that so many creatures are immune to the effects of Cloud Kill that it becomes kind of a waste. Color Spray is okay. Command, yeah, that's fine. Commune is fine. Commune with nature is fine. Compelled Duel. A lot of people don't like Compelled Duel. I don't mind it. It's okay. If a creature fails their save, they get disadvantage to attack everyone but you. That's not bad. Comprehend Languages is okay. Compulsion, sure, that's fine. I won't bother explaining each and every thing I've got here. I'm going to just kind of highlight the ones I'm not satisfied with or I'm particularly satisfied with. And let's see. Of those, Cordon of Arrows is way too weak. Just not nearly good enough. Counterspell, I'm sorry. I'll take Counterspell on every build, but I'm not a fan of the way the spell works. I think it could have been designed in a more interesting way. I mean, I'm not even sure it should be a spell. I think it maybe should be a class feature. Create food and water. Yeah. So the other ones are not worth worrying about. Okay, so these ones here. Crown of Madness is just terrible design. It's a good idea. It just, they didn't do it well. And I have really mixed feelings about darkness as well. I'm not sure magical darkness should obscure dark vision, to be honest. Um, and so yeah, I'm going to say slightly dissatisfied with that one. And daylight doesn't create sunlight, so that's stupid, right? So that has to go in the dissatisfied column. The rest, you know, not too bad. Delayed blast fireball. I mean, I'm not a fan of it. I mean, I've given satisfied results here to, spells I'm not a fan of, but that's because I don't think they're, terribly designed. They're just not my cup of tea. Demiplane, I think, is a very cool spell, and I'm going to give it a very satisfied. Though there is that little thing about the wording where you can get trapped in your own demiplane. That probably shouldn't be there, but anyway. Tech Magic, Poison Disease, Thoughts, Dimension Door. Dimension Door is a neat spell. I am not going to give it very satisfied because it should have the size limit not based on the size of the caster. So this idea that, you're a gnome and you can't Dimension Door and bring along a human with you, I don't like that. Um, yeah, the other ones, they're fine. Again, some of them not my cup of tea. There's certain kinds of spells I don't like. Spells like that. Disintegrate is on the top of my head because it's at the bottom, but I don't like spells where you target a single enemy and if they make their saving throw, nothing or very little happens. Those things, not really. Oh, and Fiend Death. Yeah, not a fan of that. I'm going to say slightly dissatisfied. Now, Find Familiar. Now, that's a good question because the thing about Find Familiar is I love playing with Find Familiar, but I do think it's probably too good, right? Or maybe it shouldn't be a first level spell, or maybe it should be a class feature instead of a spell. So I do actually have some issues with Find Familiar, despite the fact I really like the spell. Um, Find Steed. Wording on Find Steed is terrible as to what you share with the steed when you cast the spell or when you cast another spell. What constitutes targeting other people and doesn't. Uh, you know, uh, let's see. Find the path. I mean, situationally, it's fine. Find traps. Doesn't find traps. Okay. Finger of Death. Yeah, it does what it's supposed to, except it doesn't usually kill anything. Fireball, Firebolt, Fire Shield, Firestorm. Firestorm just doesn't do enough damage. Um, Others, I'm just going to say that I'm satisfied. I don't think any of them are amazing spells. Flame Blade. No, yeah, I don't know. I think I know what they were trying for with Flame Blade, but it's a total failure. Flame Strike. Why they would make that so much worse than other level equivalent blasts? It doesn't make any sense. Flaming Sphere is a spell I actually kind of liked early on, but there has been so many non-concentration options now for your bonus action uh, that Flaming Sphere has continually gotten worse as the game has gone on. But you know what? Its original iteration, it was fine. When it was just Player's Handbook you're playing with, it was fine. Flesh to Stone, yeah, I mean, not my cup of tea, but it's fine. Fly, yeah, a good spell. I think Fly is well designed. I like the idea of the way it upcasts. Fog Cloud, the problem with Fog Cloud is the rules just have never been super clear to people on how it should work. And even when you play with the rules, even when you understand how they work, they don't necessarily make sense. So I am slightly dissatisfied with that. Um, let's see. Is Force Cage too powerful? That's a question that probably I should ask myself right now. And it probably is. The problem with Force Cage is I have used it to end high challenge rating encounters in a heartbeat. And, that's super effective. I'm not sure it's fun because I missed out on those high challenge encounters. I'm not a big fan of just turning off encounters with the spell. So, I'm going to say slightly dissatisfied. That'll be a shock to people because Force Gauge, I take it every single time I can. But that's only because it's so good and because it does shut down encounters. And tactically, that's the right move. Doesn't mean it's good design. So we're just going to, whoops, didn't want to move that one up. Flame Strike deserves the dissatisfied. All right, move on. Friends. Yeah, no, Friends is poorly designed. I mean, it's an okay spell for certain things, but if it is supposed to do what it actually does, it shouldn't be called Friends. All right, and gaseous form, it's just doesn't do what you think it should do. Gate, same thing. Gesh, same thing. Gentle repose, yeah, I mean, it's super situational, but it's fine. Giant insect is okay. Glibness is probably too high a level for what it does. So I'm going to say slightly satisfied. Globe of Invulnerability. I would prefer if Globe of Invulnerability had a chance of stopping any spell than automatically stopping spells of a certain level or lower. So, slightly dissatisfied. Glyph of Warding is just a cheese bomb, right? It is a good idea, but they've designed it poorly. And Goodberry, you know, same thing. And yeah, I actually think Goodberry is okay. But I'll tell you what, soon as the designer said, oh yeah, it works with Disciple of Life from first level Life Cleric, and then it does 4 hit points per Goodberry, I mean, you took a good spell and you made it cheesy, right? But originally, I think it was a good spell. I'm going to say slightly satisfied because there should have been some clarification in the wording. Can you feed it to somebody else? All that stuff. You have to ask your DM because it's not in the spell. Hex. Some people hate Hex, but I think it's fine. Hold Monster, not my cup of tea, but I think it's fine. Same thing with Hold Person. Holy Aura, good spell. Hunger of Hadar. My issue with Hunger of Hadar is you really have to think about how to make it work well. And I think most players aren't going to put in that effort and get disappointed in the results. So that's my issue with that. Hypnotic Pattern. Yeah, you know what? I'm okay with Hypnotic Pattern. I don't think it's too powerful, but I definitely think it's powerful. Ice Storm is not powerful enough. Identify. I mean, if Identify can't identify cursed items, and we can identify any item by attuning to it, yeah, there's just not a lot of point. Illusionary Script. I mean, should be a cantrip, shouldn't it? Right? I'm going to say dissatisfied on that. Non-detection. Nice. Yeah, sure. Freezing Sphere. I'm slightly dissatisfied. It's okay, but there's some stupid stuff in the design. Like, you can't throw it far enough to not be in the area, right? So that's a bit of a problem. Autoluke's Resilient Sphere, I think, is pretty neat. Otto's Irresistible Dance, I've come around on. I used to despise it. I now am at the point where I think it's still not a spell I would take, but I don't think it's awful. I'm going to say slightly dissatisfied. Pass Without Trace, honestly, should probably give advantage on stealth, not a plus 10 to everybody, because it kind of makes stealth rolls pointless, right? So I'm not actually happy with the design of Pass Without Trace. Pass Wall, sure, it's fine. Phantasmal Force, that one I'm totally dissatisfied. The wording on Phantasmal Force does not make it clear enough what you can do with it and what you can't do with it, because it really all is going to come down to your DM, but there's such a sway. I mean, all illusions have a certain amount of DM fiat, but yeah, Phantasmal Force is a special case. Phantasmal Killer is just a bad spell. Phantom Steed. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say slightly satisfied because Phantom Steed probably shouldn't be a ritual. It's probably too powerful as a ritual. I think as a third level spell, it would be a decent spell. I mean, 100 feet of movement, right? Or have it so that it's not trained for combat. All right. Planar Ally. No, this is not good design. Same thing with Planar Binding. Planar Binding is really confusing on how that works, especially if you want to planar bind a creature that you've summoned and are concentrating on how that works. Not clear enough. Plane Shift is good. Plant Growth, bad design. Fantastic spell. Probably broken, right? But that's the problem. Probably broken. It should be difficult terrain, right? And so that things that allow... I mean, you can have freedom of movement. It doesn't let you move through a plant growth. That's silly, right? Poison Spray, same problem with Poison. Poison just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Polymorph. Polymorph is a good spell, but it could be so much better. And it really needs to be redesigned to give specific options within the spell rather than having you mine creatures from the monster manual. Power Word Heal isn't strong enough. Power Word Kill is just bad design too, right? Like you don't know the hit points of the enemy. So, you know, you cast a 9th level spell and it does nothing. Same thing with Power Word Stun, except Power Word Stun's even worse, so I'm going to put it under Dissatisfied. Prayer of Healing probably shouldn't be 10 minutes, right? Or if it was, it should heal more hit points. Reverse Gravity, Revivify is a good spell. Rope Trick is neat. Sacred Flame is good, but I'm going to say slightly because, you know, they did that wording, and I know what they were going for, where they said about enemies not benefiting from cover, but that should have been made more clear. Sanctuary is okay. Scorching Ray is a little weak for the level, but it's fine. Scrying is fine. Okay, so Smiting Spells. Most of these Smite spells I'm going to be putting Dissatisfied on because they're not good, right? And if they're not good, then what's the point? Why would a Paladin choose to do these instead of a Smite if a Smite is better? Okay, so See Invisibility, sure. Yep, okay. Simulacrum, very dissatisfied. Simulacrum breaks the game, right? So you either, as a player, have to self-regulate and not take Simulacrum, or DM has to ban it, right? So that's no good. Sleep is probably too powerful at first level and not powerful enough later on. So yeah. Sleet Storm is good. Slow is good. Spare the Dying is fine. Speak with Animals does what it should. Speak with Dead does what it should. Speak with Plants does what it should, but is too high level. Spider Climb's fine. Spike Growth is a super fun spell. I wonder if it's too powerful, but it's just too much fun to say I'm not satisfied with it. Spirit Guardians, yeah. I mean, honestly, Cleric should have more spells like Spirit Guardians. Spiritual Weapon, a lot of people hate this spell now. I still think it's okay. Staggering Smite, nope. Stinking Cloud, nope. The poison problem. Never mind, Stinking Cloud has some odd interactions. It's just not a good spell. Stone Shape is good. Stone Skin, nope. Way too expensive. I'm going to say slightly dissatisfied, but that big material component, and also having magical weapons bypass it. What is that about? Okay, Storm of Vengeance. Storm of Vengeance. Yeah, that's a 9th level spell, and you know, some rounds it does like 1 die of damage. Yeah, enough said. Suggestion. Yeah, it's fine. Sunbeam, sure. Sunburst is too weak. Did I press that? There we go. Swift Quiver is too weak. Symbol. Yeah, Symbol. I think it's fine. I'm not sure how players are supposed to use it. Tasha's Hideous Laughter, sure, yeah, that's good. Telekinesis is fun. I like telekinesis. Telepathy, it's too high level, right? I'm going to say slightly dissatisfied. It should be a lower level. Teleport is fine. Teleportation Circle is fine. Tensor's Floating Disc is fine. Thaumaturgy. Thorn Whip is a lot of fun. Tsunami is fine. Unseen Servant is fine. Vampiric Touch is not good enough. Vicious Mockery, the scaling works wrong on it. A D4 scaling on the cantrip means that it doesn't scale like the other damage cantrips. So, yeah, that's a problem. Wall of Fire is fine. The wording on Wall of Fire could be improved. I'm going to say slightly satisfied. Wall of Force is probably too powerful. So, you know, it honestly, here's what Wall of Force should have. Wall of Force should have hit points, right? The same as it is now, except you can destroy it if you do enough damage. Give it lots of hit points, but it should have some kind of hit points. Wall of Ice is good. Wall of Stone is good. Wall of Thorns is good. Warding Bond is a neat spell. All right. It looks like I might be getting close to the end of just ranking spells here. Thank goodness. I'm going to kind of go through these quickly. Web is probably too powerful. It should be a 3rd level spell, not a 2nd level spell. But overall, it's fine. Weird. Yeah, dissatisfied. Windwalk. Windwall. Don't call it a wall. Wish. Ugh. What do I say about Wish? I say I'm satisfied. Witch Bolt is awful. Word of Recall, I mean, it's not a great spell, but fine. Wrathful Smite is a good smite spell. I think it's accidentally a good smite spell. I bet money the designers didn't know that once the creature had the frightened condition, it would be making the checks to try to break it with disadvantage. I would bet money they didn't make that connection when they published the spell. But, you know, Wrathful Smite, at least it makes it a smite spell that's worth casting. Zone of Truth. Zone of Truth needs a change. It needs people able to choose to fail the saving throw. All right. Have you cast this spell? Yeah, can I do both? Yes, I can. I'm sure I've done all these spells with both. I'm not going to go through and specifically remember each one. There's probably ones that I haven't actually cast, or at least as a DM. You know, I'm looking at this, and have I cast Augury as a DM? Almost certainly not. But I'm just not going to take the time. I cast a lot of spells. When I play a lot, I tend to play casters. I tend to like to mix up my spells. Although there's certain spells I think are the best spells, I like to take spells I normally don't take just to do something different. And I DM a lot. And when I DM, my monsters will have spells. And again, I take spells that I normally wouldn't take because you're a DM. What the heck? So, yeah, I'm not going to specifically go through and think about each of these ones. I cast a lot of spells. So I'm just going to say yes to all of them, but I'm sure there's exceptions. I bet you I haven't cast, Dancing Lights as a DM, right? So apparently this is going to take a long time. Okay, so that was it. I'm glad I edited that part out because it's just a matter of going down and putting in check marks. And they're asking any more feedback on spells. Yeah, I mean, again, I question the value of this, right? Like, you're having me say I'm dissatisfied with something, but if you don't know why I'm dissatisfied, then what's the point of that, right? Because a lot of these spells, they could be good spells. They just need some, design fixes. And so I say I'm dissatisfied, and then for all they know, maybe they think that I just don't like that idea of a spell or something. But any additional feedback on spells? All right. There was a suggestion given to me, and I'm wishing I remember who it was from. But boy, the more I thought about it, and I've been thinking about it ever since. How often do you cast a spell, and then, maybe a creature moves into the area of effect, and then the table tries to remember: is this one of those spells where the creature makes a saving throw the first time they enter the area on a turn? Or is this one of those spells where they make their saving throw at the beginning of their turn if they're in the area? Or is this one of the spells where they make their saving throw at the end of their turn if they're in the area? So then you have to go and look it up. And then you have to read through the description and find out. What if every single area of effect spell that provided saving throws to the creatures in the area was the same? So every single one, you make a save when you first enter the area on your turn, and then if you end your turn in the area. So kind of a compromise there. And then you wouldn't have to look it up, right? All these spells feel very similar to the way they do now, but some spells that suck now wouldn't suck, and you wouldn't have to look it up. You would know how it works because it's just one thing. Okay, so what I've said is, if you're going to design spells that have a creature make their saving throw when they first enter on a turn, make a saving throw if they start their turn in the area, or make a saving throw when they end their turn in the area, why not just have them all the same? I mean, we keep having to look up the specifics of each area of effect spell because there's no consistency. If all these kinds of spells just had a creature make its saving throw when it first entered the area on a turn, and if it ended its turn in the area, that would save tables a lot of time looking things up. So hopefully somebody reads that. Have I ever been a dungeon master? Yes. In the past year, what percentage of D&D time has been DMing? My guess would be 70%. And I am now 49 years old. And that should be it. Okay, so it's a little disappointing to me that the only really relevant question they asked was one box of text I could fill in at the end asking for actual feedback. The rest of this isn't really feedback. They call it a feedback survey, but it's not. It doesn't mean anything for me to say I'm dissatisfied with this spell. That doesn't mean a thing to them. So why are they asking? If they're going to ask, why are you dissatisfied with this spell? So they should program this so that if somebody says they're dissatisfied with a spell, then it should, at the end, just go through the spells that you said you were dissatisfied with and said, why are you dissatisfied with this spell? Well, I don't think this should be a spell. Great. Or, I really like this spell, but it's too poorly written, or maybe it's not powerful enough, or it's too powerful, or there's bad interactions that maybe you guys didn't consider when you designed it that I'd like you to fix. There could be all kinds of reasons, and they don't know, right? So this is going to be kind of useless to them. And yeah, so I may have just wasted my time there. This is disappointing, They could be asking for feedback, and they're not. If they're watching, if you're going to do any more of these surveys on the Player's Handbook, I would really like it if you just didn't ask if I'm satisfied or dissatisfied, unless that's the flag for more information on certain things later. I'm going to tell you I'm dissatisfied on something. I want to tell you what it is I'm dissatisfied about and whether it's something you can fix. If it's not something you can fix, then either get rid of it or ignore my feedback, right? But if it is something you can fix, I'd like to be able to tell you, and then you could read it, and then you could make a decision as to whether that's a good idea or not. So I hope somebody listens to that. But anyway, I've given them my 2 cents, so I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D's for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.